Let me reintroduce myself. I am your scholar and gentleman in a hoodie, and this is another episode of Got Time with Christopher John. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Racism as a social construct emerged in the late 15th century alongside European exploration, or colonization to be more accurate. During this period, racial hierarchies were developed to justify exploitation, particularly through the chattel slaves trade. The concept of race evolved from geographic distinctions to classifications based on skin color and physical traits. In the 18th century, scientific racism emerged, using pseudoscience to reinforce racial hierarchies and stereotypes tied to economic and social capabilities. Beyond individual prejudice systems, and institutional racism took root, embedding the inequalities into laws, policies, and social structures. These dynamics produce long-standing disparities in access to resources, opportunities, and safety for people of color. Contemporary decisions of racism continue to confront these historical foundations and their enduring impact, underscoring the need for intellectual awareness and action. With the sixth annual National Day of Racial Healing upon us.
Do that again. Start with the sixth.
Mm-hmm.
Give me pause. Look at the camera. Get your camera. Then look down to the script and get it started.
With the sixth annual National Day of Racial Healing upon us, joining me is the first Executive Director of All-In Cincinnati, a community-led equity coalition focused on systemic change. She has also played a leading role in planning this annual observance. Launched in 2017 to promote learnings of truth and transformation within the context of race relations. Joining me at the table is Denisha Porter.
Yay!
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me here on your show. It's going to be a great show, and I'm excited to talk about Cincinnati's National Day of Racial Healing.
Absolutely. Yeah. We go back a little ways.
We do.
I remember when you were getting started, and this is my understanding. We were talking before. This is your first podcast?
Yeah.
Well, I know it won't be your last.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that.
Absolutely. So we first met Dr. Wendy Ellis.
Dr. Ellis, yes.
And we were featured in a documentary called America's Truth.
Yep.
This is about 5 years ago. And I had the opportunity recently to revisit that. And for my listeners, you actually can, it's still available for free that you can, it's America's Truth Cincinnati, I believe is the full title. And so I looked back on it 5 years later, and I was like, wow.
So how did you feel about that?
Kind of sad.
Did you really? Why?
Because things have gotten worse. You know, when we talk about, race relations, but it's not, looking back in history, it's not surprising. But it's disheartening, I would say that. But I'm very proud of the work that was done.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, what are your thoughts about it 5 years later?
I mean, I can definitely understand your perspective and where you're coming from. But I would also say, on a brighter note, it was exciting to see like some of the people I started working with, like including yourself and Ms. Jennifer Foster, who is a powerhouse, and Avondale, who does amazing work, who's a great person, has a great soul and a great heart and a passion to really help the community. Then there was also Tia. So yes. And
so have you? Yes. Yes, because she moved out of the city,
She
correct?
did move out the city, but Tia was one of my first partners in the work, and she actually helped with the creation of Cincinnati's National Day of Racial Healing. When I started as the executive director, there was kind of like this tension around continuing to talk about what equity is, and then there was also like, we just don't even need to talk anymore. We just need to make change and create policy and systems change. And then there was just this I think this is like the soft spot where you can bring both of them together in courageous conversations, which is called racial healing. And so I ended up meeting Tia, talking about it, and we found this framework that the Kellogg Foundation had launched. It was called Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation. And so I wanted to embed that framework within All-In Cincinnati as we were first starting. And then Tia actually wanted to create a center at UC. And so we helped each other, and it was really the start of us having this event together. And when we first started, the goal was only to have about 100 people in attendance. And this was during the height of the pandemic, so people weren't meeting in person. So we did a virtual event, and over 1,500 people joined that very first year. And it was amazing. It was really an opportunity to talk about healing on a large scale, but incorporating like what it would look like to have legislation around the 5 priority areas of All-In, like health, housing, education, economic mobility, and justice. And so for me, like looking at that video, although, and there has been some changes, I will say it talked a lot about food deserts in Cincinnati, and we still do have a tremendous issue with food deserts and food insecurity. But in Avondale, we actually do now have a grocery store.
Yes, and I've been there.
And you have been there, yeah.
Yes.
So that was one thing that came out of it. And then the other thing is just, I love the way that Councilmember Johnson kind of talked about his community and all the people that were invested in his community, and how everyone cared about one another in his community. And I still feel like we have that. I still feel like we have people who care. I feel like we have people who are willing to step up to do the work. And although it may seem hard right now, I don't think the work is impossible.
Right. And I guess to unpack that a little bit further, when I talked about my disappointment, it's not with Cincinnati, to be quite honest with you. I think Cincinnati actually has done some really groundbreaking work in that regard. You know, I think it's a model for other cities. You know, I guess my disheartenment comes with the collective around the country, which you see what's taking place. But definitely I would agree with you that Cincinnati continues to build upon the work that was done, and that the work that you continue to do with All-In. So how long has All-In Cincinnati like been in existence now?
So as you mentioned, in 2017 is actually kind of the original start. And it started with several community members and people from foundations who went to a Policy Link conference and learned about different All-In sites around the country. And they wanted to have one here in Cincinnati that focused on equity. And so in 2018, they worked with Policy Link to do some research here, talk with community members, get their feedback, talk to key stakeholders, policymakers, to create the All-In Cincinnati report, and that was completed in 2018. And then I was hired in 2019 to move those policies and systems changes forward. So I started in 2019, and now it's 2026, and so...
I don't think I've ever asked you, so what were you doing before that?
So before that, I was actually the director of health promotion and worksite wellness at the Cincinnati Health Department, and I led what was called the Creating Healthy Communities Coalition back then. So worked with wonderful people, building and making changes that the community thought should be put into place. And so we had about 50 members on that coalition and made over 400 policy and system changes. And it was mostly focused on health because my background is in public health. And because of that work, was asked to lead this coalition and advance out of health into those other areas of education and housing and justice and all of that stuff. And so really worked diligently with a lot of different people. We worked with over 40 organizations to create that strategic plan and to implement it. And we completed like 90% of that strategic plan.
Wow.
Which is amazing. And so right now what we're doing is we're collecting a lot more feedback on the next phase of All-In Cincinnati to create our new strategic plan. That will be a 3-year, not a 5-year. But the biggest thing that I realized in that video was, so I think Wendy actually spoke this into existence before it even ever happened. Right. So I've known Wendy for about 10 years. I first knew her at the health department and then transitioned to All-In Cincinnati and then kind of lost touch. It was Tia who reintroduced me or re-engaged me with her again through the documentary. And then we started working on this truth and equity project together. And so what I didn't realize as I was looking at the documentary again, she actually narrated that All-In could be a model for national expansion. And that is where we are. But not only, wow. But not only that, we're doing it with Wendy at George Washington University. And so it was like full circle to me. And the fact that she spoke it in existence 5 years before it even happened was amazing to me. And I never, because I guess when we were doing it, I was just thinking about my responses and what I said. And I've seen the documentary several times. We even aired it with you.
Yes.
But I guess that part, it never really
You didn't connect it.
I didn't connect it. And then it was like 2 years ago, I was like, I really think we have what it takes to expand to different areas in the country, because people were reaching out to me like, we want to do it here, we want to do it there. And so I started to put a business plan together, and now it's all happening. And it's like...
I definitely want to take time to shout out Dr. Wendy Ellis.
Yes, and
she's phenomenal.
Yes.
What's amazing about that project is that when she came in, when I was in the museum at that time, she just wanted to record, just some short reels. Yeah. And I think we allotted maybe about 15, 20 minutes. And then probably after about an hour later, she said, she said, or she had the thought. She didn't tell me this until afterwards. She had the thought. She said, I think this might be a documentary.
See? Yeah.
And then she went and she got, Councilmember Scotty Johnson. She got yourself, yes. Tia. It's really was done really well. You have, it also brought in the Glendale historical village of Glendale into the mix, talking about that, and also talking about Lincoln Heights.
Lincoln Heights.
Yes.
Exactly.
I would say it is a model. I guess my question to you is this: it's great work. It's meaningful work that's being done.
Yeah.
I guess, have you seen any impact from what's been going on nationally as it talks about, especially about equity?
Yeah.
Do you see that showing up in the spaces that you're involved with, that you have to do things that you may not have had to do prior to this current administration?
What do you mean by have to do things that I didn't have
I would say...
Because I don't really like to...
Okay. What I mean by is, are there different challenges that you have to navigate under the current national social climate?
I think, though, Wendy makes it easy.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I'm so excited about now, too, especially because she has had experience in really doing like national models and doing national expansion with her community resilience work and with her Closing the Wealth Gap framework. And so to me, I just feel so grateful. I feel excited. I feel safe. Like she is really helping to guide this work, to help continue this work, and really helping to mentor me so I don't have as many challenges as she had. And she's always looking out for me, for what am I trying to say? My best. What am I trying to say? My best interest.
Best
yes,
interest.
my best
Absolutely.
interest. Yes.
So, you talk about that Cincinnati is the model.
Yeah.
Can you share if there's any cities that might be undertaking that's involved? Are you allowed to share?
Not yet, because well, what we're doing right now is Dr. Ellis is evaluating like all of those policies and those strategies that we put into place over the last 5 years. There are some places that we're looking at, possibly, since George Washington University is located in D.C., so maybe D.C. or the Baltimore area.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no, I can't say.
Understood.
But I will be the first to share with you when we have the results from the evaluation.
Don't tease me now.
I
Don't play. Because we'll break it here on Got Time. We'll break it.
Yeah,
well, that's
definitely.
exciting.
It
I
is
commend
exciting.
you
Oh, thank
as
you.
well as Wendy on the continued work that you are doing. It is needed.
Yeah.
I know that although both of you may make it look effortlessly, I know that there's a lot of work. And both of you are treasures to our communities.
Oh, thank you, Chris. I
thank you so
appreciate you
much.
for that.
So, National Day.
National Day, yes.
Of racial healing.
Yes.
So how has this year celebrating, take us through how that has been as far as the planning. I know you've been very busy with the planning here in Cincinnati with it. If you can just share what that journey has been like for you.
Yes, I think the highlight for this year is we're going to have community healing activations. So that's really taking the idea of healing, and community organizations are going to lead that in the best way that they feel. So whether that's yoga, doing reading, doing documentary screenings, doing massage, or doing group therapy. There's just a lot of different ways that community organizations have stepped up to the plate and said, we want to lead on how our community comes together and heals. And so I love the way that the National Day of Racial Healing has evolved from it being virtual to being in person. We always look to highlight local leaders here, and so we will continue to do that. Our speakers are Vice Mayor Jan Michelle Kearney, who is championing this Healing Cities initiative and Healing Cincinnati legislation. We'll also have County Commissioner Denise Treehouse, Bishop Tate, the new director of the Center at UC for Truth, Community Healing and Transformation, which is Dr. Lauren Forbes. And I feel like there's one additional person that I'm missing, Bishop Tate. Well, Carlton Collins is going to moderate. Oh, and Sister Sally, who is amazing, who has been like a pillar in our community and has worked up behind the scenes in a lot of initiatives that you would never know, but who's truly supportive and stands in the gap for many people in Cincinnati. And so we're going to have that panel discussion, and that'll ground the work as we move forward to workshops. And when we get into our workshop setting, we're going to really co-design what does legislation look like in Cincinnati and Hamilton County to move the work forward. Yeah.
Since you've been doing this work for some time, what advice would you give to other communities that, they see this work and it's performative versus being transformative? Yeah, what would be the advice to make sure, that you can guard against that, to make sure that it's what is being done is being transformative?
I think being true to your passion, being true to your purpose here. I think that's a big part of it, and also thinking outside of the box. I think for me, when I first started, a lot of people said like this work couldn't be done, like it wasn't even possible. And I was like, that's not true. There have been hard things that people have done all throughout history. It just takes you committing to doing your part in the work, and it can happen. I think it also takes working and collaborating with several different people and understanding multiple perspectives in the work and bringing those all together to make the best product or legislation that policymakers can carry forward.
Okay, outstanding. So for those that are skeptical and would say that racial healing is not possible, what is your reply to that?
I think it is possible. If there's a will, there's a way. And I think that it just means that you have to be committed. I doubled down this year and said, not only am I committed to All In and the work that we've done over the last several years, but I'm committed to expanding that in other places and helping other people do the same things. So I think it is possible. Does it take time? Yes, but all great things take time.
Yeah, we know. And you got time, so you're going to take the time.
Right.
Absolutely. I want to thank you once again for opening up your schedule to make time to come visit and come to the table. I have to ask you this question because this podcast we're based on history, really unpacking history and using it for lessons. And so, if you had an opportunity to have a conversation with an ancestor. Any ancestor, whether that is someone, either family or someone beyond that, if you could have a conversation with them, who would it be and why?
It would probably be somebody in my family. I would probably like my great grandmothers. Probably something like that, only because I say that my grandmother was like the greatest influence for me in my life, and what she did for me was just make it okay for me like to truly be myself in all facets of that, whether it is showing up in, I could be a little weird. I like to do things differently, I should say.
You're an individual.
I'm an individual, exactly. Yes. And so I would like maybe to meet, and I know my great grandmother who's her mother, but I would like to meet like all the influences that have shaped all of the matriarchs in my family. And so like just going back further to kind of understand more of my own family history and how that has shaped who we all are, because I can see like differences between my great grandmother and my grandmother. For instance, my great grandmother was like a spitfire, and so like she was like super like just very vocal, like this is how I feel and I'm gonna make this
she didn't hold no filter?
Oh, no filter, didn't hold any punches. And my grandmother she was a softer person, and I think what my grandmother taught me was the power of kindness. And and how that can be influential in itself, whereas my great grandmother was like, I'm gonna be influential because I'm going to be outspoken, and my grandmother is like, be kind to everybody because you never know what people are going through.
We need that.
Yeah,
we need that. What's your grandmother's name?
So my great grandmother's name is Sally Thornton, because I do want to acknowledge her, but my grandmother's name is Leslie, and so she's not Leslie but Leslie, and so she was an amazing person.
Kindness. We definitely need this in this world. As we navigate through this world, kindness is very, very important.
Yes.
Well, thank you once again for taking the time. I appreciate you. We look forward to all the activities that are taking place. National Day of Racial Healing. Can you just share when people want to get more information? Is just like a website or something that people can go to?
Definitely. So it's racialhealingcincinnati.com. And again, there are healing activations early in the day from 7 to 11 a.m. So check out the website to identify what activation you want to attend. And then we'll meet at 1 o'clock collectively at the Freedom Center. And so I'm excited about it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris.
Joining me at the table is an educator, author, consultant, filmmaker, and sociologist known for collaborative and accessible work on race and identity. She is the founding director of the Mourning, the Creation of Racial Categories project. Founded in 2016, the project brings a unique lens to the national dialogue and conversation surrounding race. Her approach is rooted in collaboration, seeking input from people across all racial identities, guided by the belief that the story of how we were divided is a story that must be told together. She intentionally crafts work so that nothing in the presentation blocks understanding. Her goal is to draw people in, assume their intelligence, and make difficult history readable, visible, and inviting. Welcome, Joan Ferrante. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
So you have been 2016. So it's been a decade, right?
Yes, it has.
Doing this work. And so how has the project evolved in this 10 years that, you've been doing this work?
Well, it started in 2016. I always like to say, I woke up one morning and I thought of this project, and I thought of the name when I woke up, Mourning, the Creation of Racial Categories. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to call together students of all racial classifications and also artists. Over probably 200 artists have worked on the project to bring to life the story of race in the United States, how people were divided into racial categories, how the categories got created. Mm. And so I put a call out for participation and got a nice response. And that launched our first film called The Categories Black and White, which does air on KET PBS. It's streaming, so you could just look it up if you wanted to see it. And so that launched the project. And then we started with the black and white categories because that, I don't want to call them endpoints, mm-hmm. but all of the other categories that were invented after had to find their way between those two. And so now we're at the point where we're telling the story of all the racial categories. And that has, I say that's our, biggest expansion. We have art, again, artists, mm-hmm. our everything that we say almost is supported by artworks, so that it brings out the emotional side of how we were divided into categories, how the categories were created. We talk all the time about race being a social construction, mm-hmm. but I don't think very many people can say, okay, how was it constructed? And how was it experienced in the construction? And that's what my project looks at, is the experience of becoming a race in a society that did not have race. And really, we're looking a lot at memories of people recalling when they learned race. They were raceless before that first memory. Of course, the society around them wasn't, mm-hmm. but they had to learn their race. And that's what we're interested in, is how did you find out your race? And then what was that experience like? And, and then that experience echoes history. I really can't believe how much what we say about who we are reflects history, even if the person doesn't know the history, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm.
Well, James Baldwin always said that history is always with us. It's always present.
Correct.
And that's the case individually when mm-hmm. you talk about this. So you said you woke up one morning, you had the name.
Yes.
That must have been one good night's sleep
you had.
You woke
yes.
up.
Yes, it was.
And so from you waking up with that idea, how long did it take to actually, for the first, you said, the film, uh-huh. What was the span of time? How quickly did that advance?
It started immediately. I asked the dean, I said, can I do a call for participation? Mm-hmm. And I had some funding, and I offered $2,000 for students to come together during Christmas break, and we would talk about how race was created in the United States on an interactional level. And I pulled together a team that I love. I mean, I look back and the feelings I have for the students that came to tell the story of race just stick with me. I mean, dramatically. I mean, it was just such a wonderful group that got together of many racial categories and worked through this, in this case, the creation of black and white.
Right. I appreciate the fact that although you were in academia, that this project is really grassroots. You know, it's really giving power to the voices of the everyday person. I really, really appreciate and like that. And so, I mean, how many interviews have you done thus far at this point?
I'd say thousands of interviews where we ask people questions like, okay, what category do you check? You know, when you're asked, what is your race? And or do you have any questions or confusions about your category? Everyone can name them. Everyone says there's something about their category that doesn't make sense. And so we gathered for each racial category kind of a synopsis of what each category bothers them about their racial category. So I did bring a few synopses here just to
please
to give an example, like for the Asian category. This is the common way all people who are classified as Asian, this is their issue. I know to check Asian, but Asia is huge. It's so many countries. China, India, and Afghanistan, just to name a few. My grandparents are from Vietnam. How are we all the same? Now, this is true for all the categories. A big chunk of the world is put together to make a category. This Asian category is the one most concerned about it, the one where it always comes up. It doesn't come up with the black category or the white category, like there's all of Europe, there's all of Africa. No, it's not something that comes up when we ask them what's confusing about your category. As another example, white. That is a really interesting category because this is a synopsis here. I mark white because it's obvious what I am. I look white and everyone in my family is fully white. Most of the time, I'm not aware of my race. This is the category that it seems most obvious, they at least explaining to do about who they are. Of course, this goes back, we know from history why this is. The black category, and I'll just do one other here. I check black or African American, but my family line has French and Cherokee in it too. My parents always say we're a mix, and that's why our family comes in so many shades. But at the end of the day, people see us as black. That is always something about others being in the mix is always part of some discussion about my category. You know, the recognition is people won't see us as anything else, but families talk about who else is in the family. That those members of other races may not even know that they're part of that family, but the black family tends to talk about other people of other racial categories in their history line, their family history line, more than any other category. I mean, I think it might be the one that does that, actually, from all our interviews.
You know, it's that thought that, you know, you lean into your identity by how you see how other people identify you versus how you identify yourself.
Correct.
You know, which is very interesting. So I guess I'm going to ask you the question you would ask when was the first time that you identified your race or was confronted with that issue for you from a personal standpoint?
You know, that is a really good question, especially if on the surface I appear white. My family background is more complex than that. But you know, the first thing that popped into my mind, because no one's ever asked me that question myself, even though I ask it.
Well, we do
everybody.
Things for the first time here on Got Time, so yes.
This is what came to my head. I was a tennis player in high school, it seems kind of strange, you'd be thinking about your race in high school, but a neighbor asked me if I would play tennis with this black celebrity who was like on the 50-50 club, if anybody remembers that. And I said, yeah, of course I would. But we met way out off Reading Road. And here I am. I didn't really understand, because people didn't really talk to you about it, that we were living in a very segregated time. And she wasn't going to meet me in Boone County, where I play. Mm-hmm. So I drove all the way out to Reading Road, and we played. And I don't even think which is typical really of people in the white category, like putting it all together. Mm-hmm. I really don't think I kind of grasped, like, well, why am I going out here? I guess because she's a celebrity, is kind of the way my thinking was. Okay, but then I was a waitress back at a place called Dutch Pantry, and I would drive home like 80 miles an hour to get to work on time. And the other day it crossed my mind, that was race. I was going out to her place. I'm going like a mad woman home. And really what was behind all that was our racial segregation. And here I'm white and she's black, and in our stories we merged, but the stories as a complex, So I understood after the fact, like, this is where the only place we could play, Right.
And it was more of a safety issue.
Yes.
Especially during this time period. And a lot of that has to do with, it's about safety. Mm-hmm. It's about being secure.
Yes.
And not, being able to play.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you said celebrity, so this was a professional tennis player, or was this a celebrity like Hollywood type of?
It was a local celebrity.
Local celebrity.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'm not really sure the connection between my neighbor and this person, but I just, she knew I played tennis, and this woman wanted a tennis player.
You must have been a pretty good tennis player then.
You would say by I played in college and all that, but I was not a winner. Okay, that way.
You played in college.
I had trouble winning.
You weren't enough to play in college.
That's what you want to do is win. So outstanding.
Yes.
But I can tell you how some other people answer this question.
Yes, please.
As well, because I think this is the heart of our project right now is about people's first memory of things. So here are some examples, and I could go on and on because we have thousands of them, of course. But here's one. This person is a white. I always call people part of the white category, black category, because that's what we did. We put people in categories. There was an assignment in school that asked about a tradition for Christmas. I went home and asked my mom, who said we were part of we put out a nativity scene. Mm-hmm. But there's nothing unique about that. It felt shameful. White is boring and regular. There's no special dance or music like people of other races have. That's that person's first memory of race.
And that was a white person?
A white person, yes.
That said that?
And most white people will say they're boring and regular. And they do feel like we need a dance, or we need something that makes us stand out, a song, special clothes. And it's very hard to get at the idea of, okay, well, Christmas, it's the way we celebrate it. It just feels so boring and routine. So I think that's just such a great example of learning race as white, and really not being able to share that with anyone and have it discussed in a kind way. I like the word kind. Yeah. Like, we're kind about every story that a person tells us. They can't help that it happened to them, that this is how they first experienced it. And if we're going to yell at them for their experience, which we have done, unfortunately, at times, then we're not having a conversation, and we're not getting at, like, how do people learn their race? And that's those early memories. If you're into early childhood memories and stuff, that makes us as a person. Right. So that's the kind of story. I could do one or two others if you want them. But
there's one thought that came to my mind when you shared that, is that when you don't see anything special about yourself, I think that creates insecurities.
Yes, that is a very nice connection.
You know, whatever, how you identify yourself, you should be able to explore and discover what's unique and special about you. And so that you can feel secure in who you are. But when you doubt who you are, that creates insecurities. You know, that's what popped in my head when you read
and that's
that perspective.
excellent, because I do think the white category has the insecurity because it doesn't know who it is, because its story is much more complex than it knows. And so things don't get passed down that you should know about your category. And I could go on and on about that, but you've touched something very important about how the white category, people in the white category describe themselves. And it does suggest insecurity, and insecurity is not good for any kind of healing, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yes.
I mean, you have to. The healing begins within yourself, and then you can have that communal type of healing that is needed. But the healing initially needs to take place within your own self, which I think is very important. And so I know I just one more. I think you had one more you wanted to share.
All right,
with me?
this one I just love every story actually. So my mother is white, my father is black. When my siblings are out and I are out with our white grandmother, people give us funny looks because her grandkids are various shades of brown skin. One has blonde hair, blue eyes, and white skin. She would make a point of saying, "These are all my blood grandbabies." How people reacted to us is really hard for me to discuss. This I remember this person was I always say black appearing man, but he's as you can see he's got mixed roots.
It's mixed race, yeah.
Yes, and I just thought the way that last sentence that he get, this is very hard for me to discuss, because our country does not allow us to claim our relatives. Race would fall apart if it did. And so that's, why that line is great that he says.
I mean, it really stems back to the policies and laws that were aligned with chattel slavery, whether you're talking about the one drop, rule, you're talking about the status of a child being aligned with the mother. And so if the mother is enslaved, the child is enslaved. And then you just talk about the inequitable standards that were a norm that has created, that type of anxiety when we talk about race, and that level of insecurity as well, that makes it challenging to have those conversations. I know that before this we had a conversation, and that made me think about, you said you had a situation in your family that if you could share that story.
Yes.
I think it's your uncle or
It was my grandfather. I guess this is another kind of childhood memory. I didn't quite connect it with race, but my grandfather, my mother told me very late in life that 3 of his sisters couldn't pass, and that my grandfather apparently did pass into the white category, obviously. But I remember being like 6, and I was wondering, why don't I know his sisters? And because I knew about them, and what's funny about our country is I knew not to ask. At 6 years old, I knew not to ask anybody about it, because it's a question that I don't know that our country answers for anybody. And so that when my mother told me your grandfather, has these 3 sisters, I was like, oh, that. I wondered why I didn't know. And I was like 50 when she told me that. No wonder I didn't know. My grandfather's story was, and we all believed it. He was from Louisiana, and we said, how'd you get to Kentucky? And he said, I got on the train with the hobos. And he says, that's how I got here. And we just let it go. You know, we didn't. So that's the white category is empty in a sense because it doesn't pass on that story. It's not going to say, hey, I left behind 3 sisters, so I could be white. And so white feels unconnected.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, that's just like one little microcosm there. And not feel like they have any story to tell because their story is a painful one, how we become white often in this culture.
And I think you talked about, and this has been, you know, at the heart of your work, you talk about how that categorization divides.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're talking about a brother that's leaving behind sisters
Mm-hmm.
because their pigment is darker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just amazing of how much energy and how much focus and attention has been placed historically and currently when we talk about race.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing to me.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot more healing and reconciliation that is needed, and the work that you're doing, I think, is a part of that. You know, really doing that. And so I know we talked. You said you have a new chapter. I believe now you talked about the film,
Right.
and so you're working on a book. Is that
Yes,
correct?
and it's called What is Your Race? And right now I'm getting the first chapter designed with all the art in it and everything about the 7 categories, stories like you're hearing me talk about now. And then I feel like I have to get it designed so that anyone interested in it can see what this looks like. I mean, I think it's going to be a gorgeous book with the art and the you know, emotion by which the art was made, the collaborative spirit of the book. Because I treat really all the voices as if they're co-authors and collaborators. Mm-hmm. And so when that gets put together, I feel I'll be able to bring it out, you know, and find out like where will this fit in the world? Will somebody want to support a book like this? I'm doing the invitation chapter, like inviting people to tell us your story when you first learned race. Then after that, there's a chapter for each racial category. And these voices come back in the chapters. Like when I do, let's say, the our country officially calls American Indian category and Alaskan Native. You'll see the contemporary voice echoes that history. So we'll learn the history of that category, and it was designed to disappear in the way it was defined. And so today, that anyone in that category we've talked to, they're very, I want to almost say defensive that I still exist. I might be 1/4 or 1/8 Native American, or they'll say tribal nation, but they're always like trying to prove like I really am Indian, you know, and so that's in all the voices that we interview for that category. So each category we look at the history, how it was created, and how the voice of today still reflects that past. This is 400 years ago. Right. And the most recent category you may be aware of is Middle East, North African, just became a category. And like 3 months ago.
So I got to ask the question. This is a twofold question.
Yes.
Who is creating the categories?
Yes.
And I want your perspective on who's benefiting, who does this benefit?
Yes.
Those. So
yes.
I'm curious about your perspective.
Yes. Well, it starts out with the English colonists. We do have the British system of racial categorization. So if we looked at other powers in our country, like the Spain, and let's say, France, if we would have, say they had won, we would have a different system by which we see each other. You know, it would have its flaws and all that, but the categorical system, you know, since the British won, you know, got the 13 colonies, and then when the United States declared independence, it kept the categorical system. So that system is, you know, was created by I want to call them like the plantation elite or the planter elite, And and nothing to me is like, okay, we're going to divide these three groups. It was at the time it would be Indians, tribal nations, black, white, but they're not. They don't have those names. They get those names. They're just
Right, because I used to
yes.
I used to decode ads, and so they would use language like Guinea, Igbo.
Yes.
You know, it
Yes.
wasn't. It was very rare. I didn't see the term African. It was identified with a
Right.
certain region or
Right.
country,
Right.
which I think is, how a lot of people identify. This is one thing that I found very fascinating when I moved here to Cincinnati. And I've grown to actually find it endearing. I've evolved in my thinking of this. When I moved here, one of the questions, and people that are transplants that come to this city, and I'm not quite sure if this happens in other cities across the nation, the question is, well, what high school did you go to? Or what school you go
Yeah.
to? And I was always found that fascinating because my answer, you wouldn't be able to identify with the school. And I just thought it was strange and weird. But I've evolved to think that the person, if they're meeting you for the first time, they're trying to establish a connection. Because if you say that, you went to this particular school, that means you probably grew up in this area. Do you know so-and-so and whatnot?
Yes.
And so it's a question to establish connectivity. That's how I view it
Yes.
at this time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. I don't know that question, if we ask what is your, say, race, it might be codes for race, like, tell me about your background comes through your school system. But to ask people that question and to talk about it here is a very tense moment. People just have just a conversation is so hard about race, and even at this level that we're talking about it. I know when I interview people, they can't believe they can freely express how they learned about their race.
Right.
It's that I think has really been eye-opening for me, that they feel like, where did this woman come from that I want to tell her my story? And it's because I love the stories. I think the stories also get at something hopeful, because people remember the stuff and they are still distressed by it, and it's still and it raises a question that we've been asking for 400 years. Why does just a little drop of African blood make me black? Why is a little dab will do you? As one student said, that's what their dad said. They were light complexioned, and and he didn't feel like he was could identify as black, and his dad said, a little dab will do you. And so he felt secure after that, after his father told him that. But that question about the one drop rule, that's been with us for 400 years, and we haven't answered it. But people to have that, they want to know the answer. Why does this a little dabble do you? And we who spend our careers learning, I get paid for this. Most people don't, and they don't have any idea of something called the condition of the mother law, or one drop rule, or Native Americans were created to disappear, or white was created to never claim its children, as it would always be the other race if they had children across racial lines. No one knows that unless you're paid to study it, and so. That's one passion of mine. Is I don't get upset when people don't know things. I mean, look at my life. My life has been to learn.
Absolutely.
And so I think that helps too when I interact. That I'm not going to say, "What do you mean you don't know?" Whatever.
Well, I think it's important for everyone, regardless of how they identify themselves, to be in the business of learning. Lifelong learning, regardless if you have a degree or not. I think learning is something that should take place until the day that you can no longer, learn, because you're supposed to evolve as a person in your thoughts, in your philosophies, and so forth, and so I think that's just so important. You talked about hopeful. You just mentioned that, and I want to get your perspective on, racial healing. Given the work that you were doing, have been doing for the past 10 years, the current racial climate, around the country, when someone says is racial healing possible, what thoughts come to your mind? What is your perspective on that?
Well, in my little world, where it's very interactional, and I'm thinking of race interactionally and how people learn it, I say it feels very hopeful. I mean, there's a real sorrow to the stories people tell, and even as I read the two examples, you can feel like this deserves to be mourned. The division, something dividing happened when first memory occurs, and it's usually somebody in their immediate life, because they're little, and that dividing sticks with them. Like, all of a sudden, I'm fundamentally different from somebody because of the categorical model that our country has. And everyone recognizes it, like, this is a fundamental difference. And it's not, but our country has made it such.
That part.
So that the fact that people have so many questions and confusions about their racial category means if we just could talk about the source of these confusions and people not feel threatened by saying who they are and what they experienced, it feels to me like that's the tiny start of healing. Because the collective consciousness is all categorical in the United States. Its fundamental differences is how the country treats it, because that's what the information they gather on people. What is your race? We've been asking it for 400 years. So the public, and I have to stop myself too, it's not a fundamental difference. It's a difference that our country has reinforced as fundamental. So to change the consciousness, we have to, this is the kind of start of it, so that we have a new lens. And then that makes people, in my mind, more amenable to change, more softer toward each other, and their stories.
Kindness has been the word of the day, right? Kindness.
Yes, and
absolutely.
Yes, and it's surprising, the number of people that say, I never would have thought the white category has this, these issues. White category people say, I never would have thought about, that, take the Hispanic category, which is not a race, it's an ethnic group according to our government, that this is a category that can be any race, and yet we're putting them all together into one. So everyone is kind of like, I didn't know. Now, that makes sense now. People talk like they do or about race.
Yeah, and I think that the categories it's a tool to be used.
Yes, absolutely.
It's a tool to be used for a small percentage of people with amount of power and influence to get their own self or personal advancement. Because, when we look at it from a communal standpoint, from a community standpoint, I'd rather connect with you to talk about tennis. It's like, I would love to have a conversation. I didn't know. I've known you for years. I didn't know that you were this outstanding tennis player, and so I'm intrigued.
Let's go outstanding. Let's keep that.
I'm going to say it because can somebody prove that you were not?
Yes, my record.
Your record, okay. Your record speaks for itself.
Yes,
but absolutely. I just want to commend you on the work that is being done, because often when we have these conversations about race and we talk about the Black community, I always feel as if the burden to have these conversations are on Black people to start and facilitate these conversations. So I just appreciate that you have the passion. I'm glad you woke up that morning with an idea that has lasted for a decade, and you're continuing to do the work to do that and to have these meaningful, very critical conversations.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for taking the time. So, I will say with this. So, with the book, there's an inspected date with the book, and what do you? My last question is, what do you hope the impact is that you're being made, the work which you're
Yes.
doing with the project, but also the book?
This is going to sound, I don't know, egotistical perhaps. It's a book for the nation. And I'm assuming really even some of my colleagues don't know the systematic way it was created and how it was created on how it was experienced. That understanding how it's experienced is much different than saying, oh, they made the black category so it would be at the bottom. And that's not enough knowledge. That's not enough information for people to take that in and understand that. Now we can say how that happened, through the way interaction took place and how people scrambled almost in a way to get away from the black category in the way it was set up. So even its own kin abandoned it, the black category, if you could get away from it, because this was the category, it was the category that was assigned enslavement for life and intergenerationally. There was enslavement of everyone before that terrible transformation that made black the category enslaved for life and for 18 generations. That's a very unique story. And how did that happen? And then when that happened, people sought to escape that. So then they made their way into any category but black.
Right, and that's
to
why
learn
passing.
that. Yeah, to learn.
Okay.
I want to say we, meaning the people helped out in what was put in front of them. They did their best they could to negotiate it. And I think that story needs to be told.
Absolutely. And so from the historical standpoint is, there are many, you got the Bacon Rebellion, which a lot of people will go to that, but you also have the story of John Punch, and you have this, and that's why I'm intentionally, I say chattel slavery, because it's always that argument. Well, there were other people other than Africans that were enslaved, but I said it was a difference. And they will say there's slavery in the Bible, but there's a difference.
Yes.
Chattel slavery strips you of your humanity.
Yes.
It's not about station. It's about even determining that you're no longer a human being. So that is very much different than any other forms of slavery that existed before chattel slavery. And so in those, with John Punch, he escaped with a Dutchman and an Irishman to escape indentured servitude at that time. And they were captured and they were punished. The Dutchman and the Irishman their servitudes were extended. I believe it was like an extra 7 years or so. I could be off a year or two. But John Punch, who was African, his punishment was life.
Correct.
Enslavement. And that perpetuated into chattel slavery. And so it's important for us to know the history. It's important for us to have the understanding of how that history shows up today.
Correct.
And your work does that.
Thank you.
Yeah, it does that. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you for having me.
Now, before you leave the table, I want to make sure that we know the streaming is still available for Mourning the Creation of Racial Categories. And how can people view that or access that again?
It's I think just if you go into Google search, just do MCRC categories black and white KET, and it'll come up.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Please be sure to check that out. And the book, when is there a projected release for the book? Is it coming out this year, next year? Oh,
The invitation chapter, which would give people a good orientation, is supposed to be ready by the end of this month.
Oh.
And so then they can go to the website, the MCRC website, to learn about that. I haven't updated my website in 3 years, but it's going to happen. And,
can you please give the website address?
It's just called the mcrcproject.org. That's it. Okay. And if you just put in MCRC, the MCRC project, it should come up. The mcrcproject.org come up with no problem.
Well,
Okay.
I'm definitely going to say this, a part of all the activities that are taking place on National Racial Healing Day, I would say listen to this podcast is one. Like, share, and subscribe. make sure you visit, the website, and to see the work that you're doing. That should be a part of the experience of getting that rich history as well. And once again, I just applaud you for the work that you're doing, and thank you for taking time.
Thank you for having me.
Before this conversation today, I've been somewhat skeptical if racial healing is possible. But with my guests that I appreciate and thank so much, I do feel a lot more hopeful. My skepticism comes from history. The Anti-Slavery Society, founded in 1833, was an essential organization in the abolitionist movement. The organization aimed to unify efforts and push towards immediate abolishment rather than gradual. By 1840, they had approximately 200,000 members and over 2,000 chapters. In 1837, Joshua Easton, an abolitionist and minister, said these very words at an anti-slavery society gathering. Abolitionists may attack slaveholding, but there is a danger still that the spirit of slavery will survive in the form of prejudice after the system is overturned. Our warfare ought not to be against slavery alone, but against the spirit which makes color a mark of degradation. We have seen that spirit transform from chattel slavery to Jim Crow to lynchings to the Tea Party and to our current situation. Healing requires a spiritual reckoning, and the spirit of this country refuses to reckon with that very spirit that creates racist systems, policies, laws, and behaviors. Nevertheless, amid the rising dark sky, I will continue to guard my hope as long as I got time. Before signing off, much respect and appreciation to those Kansas City brothers at the Ready, Set, Yo podcast for supporting and giving a scholar this hoodie. You can check them out on YouTube and Facebook. This is your scholar and gentleman in a hoodie. Know thy history.